afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Philly Zoo at 2. I am here with Michael, who is our primate curator. He's the curator of primates and small mammals here at the zoo. And we are here with one of our favorite primate species, the black and white colobus monkey. So those of you who are longtime viewers of the show may remember the last time we tried to film these guys. We ended up in a torrential thunderstorm, and like clockwork, it has just started raining again, but luckily, no winds and no lightning yet, so I think we're going to be okay this time.
And also they're rainforest species, so they don't mind the rain, and we can just take our cue from them, right?
You know what was funny is last time the storm was so bad, they all ran inside. And it was so bad, they didn't want to be outside, so we knew we had to pause. But this time, this is perfect weather for them, right? Maybe a little cool.
You know, they're very adaptable, actually.
Oh.
They live across wide swaths of equatorial Africa, from the rainforest, for most of them, but out into the dry savannas where it gets way hotter, and even up into the mountaintops where it gets way cooler.
The same species lives in all those different?
Species.
Wow, that's amazing.
Actually 8 different subspecies of this type of colobus.
Oh,
so they're each a little bit different and a little bit adapted to the area where they're living.
So let's talk about colobus monkeys in general. This is, a lot of people see this animal and they recognize it as a monkey, but that's about where their understanding stops. This is not a monkey that a lot of people picture when they think about a monkey. So tell us a little bit about colobus monkeys.
Sure. Well, first of all, colobus are old world monkeys.
Okay.
Which means they're different than the spider monkeys from South America or any other monkey that you might see hanging by its tail.
Yep.
There are no old world monkeys that have prehensile tails.
Okay, so when we say old world monkeys, we mean monkeys that are from Asia, Africa, primarily those locations.
That's right. And then amongst those old world monkeys, there's several subdivisions. So the colobine monkeys are a specific type that focuses on eating leaves, and they come from Africa. So Asia has its own species, or own family of monkeys that eats leaves. Those are the langurs.
Okay.
And you can see our Francois langurs here at the Rare Animal Conservation Center.
They're very popular.
Absolutely. Maybe not as beautiful as these guys, but they've got a lot of other endearing qualities.
Some people actually look at these, I overhear it when I walk by, and they look at this animal and they immediately think it's a skunk, which is amazing to me because these are so much larger than a skunk and their tail is so long and beautiful.
It's
now,
true.
What exactly is the purpose of that really long tail? What do they use it for?
Well, like a lot of monkeys, they use that long tail for helping them balance when they jump. And colobus monkeys, and black and white colobus monkeys in particular, are excellent jumpers. They can jump more than 20 feet.
20 feet
from one branch to another branch, straight across the forest. So that really helps them out a lot, and that is one of the reasons that they can live outside of the dense primary forest.
Okay.
Some species, they really need that dense primary forest.
Because they need to be able to reach from branch to branch.
Yeah, but colobines, first of all, eating leaves. There's leaves everywhere. They don't need to search out just fruiting trees or a particular type of flower or seed or something. They can eat leaves from almost any tree, even some trees that are poisonous to other monkeys.
That was my next question, is that there are certain leaf eaters. I mean, I think people are familiar with something like a koala. They can eat like one leaf in the whole world.
Right.
But a colobus monkey can eat almost anything?
They can eat just about anything. Now, they do have preferences.
Of course.
They prefer the softer, tender, young shoots, just like we all like in our salads.
Yep.
But they actually get a lot more nutrition per mouthful for those big tough leaves.
Oh, it's like when you get a salad and you really want the crispy romaine or the crispy iceberg, but you know you should get spinach instead.
Exactly.
Yeah, even though the spinach like kind of clings to your mouth and it's not very pleasant.
And then let's take that one step farther. Let's say you're at a buffet and somebody already picked out all your favorite parts out of the salad. There are parts of trees that these colobus monkeys can eat that no other monkeys can eat. And in fact, one of their favorite foods in East Africa is called Prunus africana.
Okay.
And that tree is known to be deadly to almost any other animal that eats it. Guess what? It's the black and white colobus's favorite food.
So they must have a pretty strong stomach.
They have a very strong stomach, and not only is it strong, it's different. It's built differently than other monkey stomachs.
Okay.
So it's divided into sections, not unlike the stomach of a cow.
Okay.
So the first section, which is really kind of up in their throat, it has a different type of bacteria than what you would find in a normal primate stomach.
Really?
So that first section is where they're digesting a lot of the cellulose and other things that we as humans just can't digest at all, and that even some other monkeys have trouble digesting. The colobines have that sac up in their upper digestive tract to digest a lot of that cellulose, and then it moves on to their main stomach, which is more like a typical primate stomach.
That is amazing. Okay, but can they eat like fruits and vegetables, or do they only eat leaves?
They actually can eat fruits and vegetables and flowers and seeds, and in fact, when it's there, they prefer that.
That was my next question.
But the thing is, a lot of times other fruit specialists are going to be seeking those things out and taking them from this tree, running a mile across the forest, taking them from that tree.
Yep.
The colobus don't have as big of a range.
Oh, okay.
They're fairly territorial, and they live in pretty small families like this one.
Okay.
Maybe 6 to 10 of them in a family would be typical for most of them. Now there is one subspecies that makes supergroups of 500 monkeys living all together.
Really?
But for most of the black and white colobus, they're in a small family like this with a very small range. And so when a tree in their range fruits, yeah, they're going to love it.
Yeah.
But they can get by without any fruit, without any flowers, any of that.
This seems like a very chill, relaxed primate to me. Like, they're just going to take whatever comes their way. They're going to survive no matter what. They're going to be cool about it.
And in fact, that is reflected in their conservation status.
That was my next question.
These guys are listed as least concern by the IUCN, and that doesn't mean that we don't care about them.
Not at all.
That just means that conservation speaking, they're doing all right.
Yes.
And that is, just like you said, they can eat just about anything. They can cope with a lot of changes in their environment. However, they are a great flagship species because they are so beautiful, to talk about all the other species that live in their forest. I studied these guys in Uganda for many years.
Yeah, you actually have experience with this animal in the wild, so tell us more about that.
So Rebecca Goldstone and I have been working in western Uganda for more than 20 years. And our first trip out there was to study the leaping habits of this species and 4 other species of monkeys.
Huh.
And I'll tell you that these guys were never a problem to find. You wake up in the morning, open the door, and they are sitting right there in front of the house. Some other species that we were studying, some of the fruit eaters, way more difficult to find, and so also way more difficult to study, and way more difficult to tell conservation stories about. So when we have these guys here at the zoo, we can talk about not just them as a species, but the entire habitat that they come from. So in Kibale, where Rebecca and I work, there's actually 13 different species of primates in this one small national park. So there are all different kinds of monkeys, there's chimpanzees, there's baboons, then you've also got ungulates like duikers and buffaloes. You've got tons of different snakes and over 200 different kinds of butterflies, over 350 kinds of birds. It's an amazing place, and by looking at this one monkey here, you can kind of start to imagine what that place might be like and all the threats that are facing it.
That's amazing. So even though this monkey in particular is not currently a threatened species, we still care about them, and we more importantly care about all of the habitat that this monkey lives in because of all of those other species that live there. So what can be done to continue to protect those areas?
Well, that's a great question. So first off, I'll just say coming to the zoo is one of the things that people can do to help.
Yeah.
The zoo, obviously, here at the zoo, we care immensely about each of these individual animals, and we are doing our very best to make sure that all of them live the happiest, fullest, healthiest life possible. And we're also helping to protect their habitat out in the real world. So the Philadelphia Zoo has been supporting this work in Uganda over the years in many different ways. And a lot of different animals around the zoo might be endangered because of things that we here in the U.S. are doing. And that's important to look at our resource use and all the different things that we do that affect the larger world. But for this particular species and the others in Kibale National Park that we're working to save, it's actually small-scale firewood collection that's threatening the forest.
Really? Is that causing deforestation?
It's causing deforestation on a huge scale.
What?
Just from people going in and collecting firewood.
Oh my gosh.
Now that's happened for thousands of years.
Of course.
People in Africa have cooked on fires for thousands and thousands of years. The only change recently is as the population grows, that is no longer sustainable.
Yep.
So just in the last 20 years or so, collecting firewood in the forest became unsustainable, and we started seeing this real significant drop in their habitat.
Huh.
And so what Rebecca and I do is help people get what they need without negatively impacting the forest.
Amazing.
So specifically for firewood and how it would impact these colobus monkeys, that means growing your own firewood at home. So there's several different fast-growing tree species that you can plant at home. We also have a very easy-to-build, fuel-efficient stove. It's made out of mud, so anybody can build it for themselves for zero cost. And we also promote biomass briquettes and manufacture them. These are briquettes just like
charcoal.
Just like charcoal briquettes that you would buy at the store, but instead of being made from, and actually that's something we can do in America. A lot of times those briquettes are made out of recycled materials, even here in America.
Wonderful.
But in Uganda we make it from farm waste.
Okay.
We make them out of banana peels and peanut shells and avocado pits.
Huh.
You grind it up, compress it, and then it burns just like a charcoal briquette. That's another way to get what you need as a human being with a family and a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
You can still cook your dinner without negatively impacting the forest.
And that's so important because I know we're talking about a species that is not critically endangered, but that doesn't, again, you mentioned this earlier, that doesn't mean that we can just ignore them and say, oh, they're fine. All that means is that we need to keep them where they are, and we need to make sure that the areas where they live are protected. So taking measures like the ones that you are doing is so important, not just for these animals that are beautiful and everybody loves them, but every other single little thing that maybe is not as pretty as people might like to think, like those snakes and those butterflies and those little tiny duikers that you mentioned. Those need protection too, sometimes more than these monkeys, and it's important to take those measures on behalf of all of the animals that live there.
Absolutely. And you know, a lot of times when people picture Africa, they picture this big continent full of forests and full of animals, and as soon as I land, I'm going to walk off the plane and see a lion and see a bunch of monkeys. It's not really like that anymore. It's more similar to what we have here in the States, that we still have big, beautiful national parks with healthy, thriving ecosystems in them, but outside of those national parks, you don't necessarily see this wildlife anymore.
Wow.
And so that's why it's just as important to protect those national parks in Africa and elsewhere around the world as it is here in the USA.
And that's actually why it's also so important to support, for those of us in the United States who are wondering, how can I possibly help wildlife? I know that it's self-serving to say this, but supporting your local zoo is essential. We do the conservation work that you might not be able to as somebody who lives in Philadelphia, who doesn't travel regularly to Africa. We are doing that work. And by you coming to support us, you are helping us to make sure that that work happens. It's not possible for the animals that we have here to just go and live in the wild. This myth of the pristine wild is a big problem. There isn't a home for many of these animals to go home to, so this is where they live. By you coming here to help us, you're helping to ensure that these animals are around for generations to come.
Yeah, and not only supporting us in that way to then fund these types of projects, and like I said, the Philadelphia Zoo has supported our work in Uganda for many years, and we have more than 30 other zoos around the world supporting this work. But you're also helping to educate yourself and turn your family into conservationists. I grew up here in Philly, coming to the zoo, and that's what turned me into a conservationist. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
You and I have very similar stories. The same thing happened to me, where I grew up coming to Philadelphia Zoo, and here I am, 30 years later, working my dream job.
And we're shifting undercover a little bit.
Slightly undercover.
Although the monkeys don't seem to mind it, we're going to try to keep our camera a little bit more dry. Huh?
Yeah. So we're probably running a little low on time, so let's see if we can answer one or two questions, and then we'll try to get a little bit drier. What kind of questions are we getting?
What noise do colobus monkeys make to defend their territory?
That is a fabulous question. This species of black and white colobus makes a noise that sounds kind of like a mix between a lion's roar and a frog. It is a really crazy noise, and I'm not going to pretend like I can do it, but we will put a link to it after the show here so people can hear it. It is an outstanding call, and they'll do it to mark their territory, usually when they wake up in the morning, but they'll also do it if they get spooked or scared, or if they get excited. So you will hear it here at the zoo sometimes, and out in Kibale, as soon as one family starts doing it, then you start hearing it from dozens of other families all across the forest. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. Let's do one more question, then we'll get out of the rain.
Are colobus a common species in other zoos?
Are colobus a common species in other zoos? I think so. There's actually two different species of black and white colobus that are kept in AZA zoos. This type, which is from East Africa, and then the Angolan black and white colobus from West Africa. And between those two species, I would say that there's probably about 400 of them in AZA zoos. So that is a nice, healthy population genetically here in the U.S. as an insurance population, that even though they're not endangered or going extinct now, 100 years from now, we'll have them taken care of because we've got this healthy population here in the States.
Amazing. Well, alas, the colobus rain cloud has struck again. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to try and get dry. We're going to make like these two monkeys here, which apparently have forgotten that they're rainforest animals. Oh well. So thank you so much, Michael, for all of your expertise. Thank you all so much for watching. We will be back. Actually, we will be back next week with a replay. We're going to take a week off next week, so we'll be back with a replay for you guys with some updates on our flamingo chick. And then we'll be back 2 weeks live, and we'll see everybody then. Thanks so much.